let us be clear.
Okay.
I in particular, and we in the CPP and in Stand Up for Cameroon, we have never been for separation and we will never be. However, we should not confuse the responsibility of this crisis.
Okay.
The Ambazonians are a result of the bad governance of the Biya government, not the other way around. It is because of Biya. The father and the mother of Ambazonia is Mr. Biya. Yeah, no, let's be clear. I do not agree, and I have never agreed. I think I am one person who has been consistent on that from day one. I do not believe in violence as a solution to anything. It never brings any solution. It only brings chaos. And we are seeing it now in the Northwest and the Southwest. I do not believe in the separation of Cameroon. I believe we have a history. That history has been badly managed. We have discriminated against the Northwest and the Southwest. We have to resolve those fundamental issues, but in my opinion, they are resolved within Cameroon. And they are resolved by giving more autonomy to the regions to determine their own development, to build their identity, to be strong in their identity. But as much as I never have agreed with the Ambazonians, and I do not agree today, and I will blame them for a lot of violence and havoc that they have created in the Northwest and Southwest, but I will never say they are the origin of the crisis. They are the result. If Mr. Biya had run Cameroon, he had, before Ambazonian crisis, he was in power for 35 years. He had 35 years to develop the country equitably for every Cameroonian to feel comfortable in Cameroon. He had 35 years to address the problems that we had at the level of independence. He had 35 years to really make English a language which is spoken throughout, so that every Cameroonian, wherever they are on the national territory, they can get administrative services, they can get justice, they can get whatever they need in the language in which they are most comfortable, which was what we agreed upon in entering into the union. So he had 35 years to do things right, and he did them wrong. He made them worse. Violence, we cannot take up arms against a violent government. We cannot say we are going to be, what are you going to do? Be more violent than the man who is violent? No. This strategy was wrong. It was wrong in 2015, it was wrong in 2016, in 2017, it is wrong today. And the Ambazonians have done a lot of harm in our communities. They have done a lot of harm in our communities because they gave guns to kids. They gave guns to children without training, without ideology, without philosophy. They gave guns to children, and those children have created havoc in our communities. And it will take us decades to get back to normal. But let us be clear, there is a start, there is an origin, and the origin is the Biya government. And the Biya government remains responsible till today because as a government, they have not taken one single initiative which is sincere and which addresses the depth of the problem which is before them. They have continuously made the problem worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, but the government will tell you, Madam Kah, that Ohada law was translated, magistrates were transferred. There was the holding of the major national dialogue that gave birth to the special status for the Northwest and Southwest regions. The putting in place of the Reconstruction Commission. A delegation was sent to the diaspora to discuss with the separatists. And are you saying that all of these were not sincere?
Insincere and superficial.
Okay.
Insincere and superficial. The dialogue that needed to happen was between the people of Cameroon, the Anglophones of Cameroon, and their government. That dialogue never took place. There's a real problem at hand. Sit down and talk to the people.
You talk a lot with the international community. Can you also understand the degree of silence that is coming from them? We hear very little from the international community. Very little reports also coming. Described some years back as a very neglected conflict.
Still.
Yes. Why this loud silence from the international community?
There are several elements to it. One is geopolitics.
Okay.
You know, contrary to what people think, countries do not have friends and they do not have enemies. They only have interests.
Interests, okay.
Meaning that a country can be your friend today and tomorrow they are not your friend.
We see what is happening between the US and the Saudi Arabia, yeah.
So countries only have interests. Now, the mistake, and this is where the Ambazonian leadership, they made many horrible mistakes. One of them was to think that the international community would support them. Nobody, no country on earth supports separation. None. You look at most countries, they have a group somewhere who is fighting for separation. France has the cause. Spain has the
Barcelona.
The Barcelona. The US has Texas. There's always somebody in a country who is saying, you know, I don't feel like I want to be part of this thing. And our closest neighbor, Nigeria, has Biafra. So what a silly mistake to think that countries who themselves are fighting against secession would now come and support you as a secessionist. It doesn't make sense in the international arena. So one of the things that killed the international community was that word secession. Once you pronounce that word secession, other nations for the most part are not with you. That's number one. Number two was the taking up of arms. Because again, who are you going to? You are going to other countries who are also managing their countries. If they support you in what they are doing, they open the road for somebody in their own country to start doing that. So by definition, the definition of a country is that we give the monopoly of violence to the state. That is in every country. It is the state who has the monopoly on violence. The state who has the police, who has the gendarmes, and then we create laws to manage that monopoly which we have given them. We don't allow everybody to get up from this side and say, I'm going to solve my problem with a gun. So the taking up of arms was such a huge mistake, because it meant that other countries could not support you. And we are now openly talking about the violations that were carried that have been carried out by the Amber Boys on the field, the kidnappings, the killings, the rapes, and so on. But Mr. Leo, you and I know, those of us who went to the ground from day one, those violations have been happening from day one. They didn't start today. I hear people say, oh, the thing don't turn, the thing don't be some kind, the thing don't. They were happening from day one. They were maybe fewer, but they were happening from day one. So those violations also made it difficult because people forget where it is that countries meet. Countries meet at the African Union. They meet at the United Nations. Who is at the United Nations representing Cameroon? It is the government of Cameroon who is talking to another government. So when that other government questions, and they do, and they did, many governments question Cameroon to say, but what is happening in your country? We are getting reports that this is, and many of us did that work. We did so much work to inform those other countries, to provide them with reports, to provide them with incident reports. We did all of that work. But the government of Cameroon says, you know, they are very good. Our government is very good at deflecting. We see them here every day with us. So when you ask that, what happened in Garbo? He said, yes, there's in Garbo. But did you see this other case in Babanki where those Amber boys went and kidnapped women? Now the person asking the question is embarrassed. Because also as a foreigner, they may not have all the statistics. So these violations that were carried out on the ground by the armed separatists also impacted. And the final point which impacted, as I said, countries have interests. Currently, Cameroon, Nigeria, Chad, and Niger are fighting Boko Haram. Mm-hmm. In the fight against Boko Haram, they have a multinational task force. That means that their armies have come together to fight Boko Haram. Now, that means the Cameroonian soldier is fighting next to the Nigerian soldier, next to the Chadian soldier. When now you have the problem in the northwest and southwest, which came after the multinational task force was in place, and so on and so forth. Nigeria looks at its interests. Where is Nigeria's interest? To fight Boko Haram or to support Ambazonian? Nigeria's interest is to fight Boko Haram.
And they need Cameroon to
they need Cameroon to fight Boko Haram. So they are not going to upset Cameroon at that time with embarrassing questions and so on and so forth. I'm talking as somebody who advocated to the Nigerian government and to Nigerian officials who told me that, madam, we understand you, we see you, but at this moment,
this is where priority lies.
We cannot go down that road. So, meanwhile, Chad, Niger, and are also advocating because they want to get rid of this problem. What was the priority for the Americans in those first years?
The Gulf of Guinea. They wanted the Gulf of Guinea.
Their priority was Boko Haram.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to, their priority was terrorism, and the government of Cameroon was a good partner according to them. So, sometimes we are under the illusion as citizens that, people who say, we are for democracy, we are for this, justice, we are for this, that they are just going to follow that line of democracy and justice. No country does that. No country does that. And if we watch the news, we will understand, because even in their own countries, they don't do that. So talk less of in their partnership with people like us.
Where do you see the people living in the northwest and southwest regions in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
The first, for us at Stand Up for Cameroon, the first, we go to the person responsible. Okay. The first person responsible is still government.
The government, yeah.
Because we believe that if government is serious about ending this crisis, tomorrow, within 6 months, we will see great progress. We will not end it from one day to another, but we will see great progress on the ground. What is the roadmap that we are putting in front of government? We have told government that today we can no longer talk about dialogue with Ambazonian leaders who are in Canada or America or Belgium or wherever they are. Dialogue today needs to be bottom up, because it is in the communities where the Ambwa boys are. It is in the communities where soldiers have committed atrocities. It is the communities where a neighbor's son has killed another neighbor's son. That is where we need to start the dialogue now.
Okay.
The northwest and southwest, we have 13 divisions in those two regions. We have about 60 municipalities. Let us go to municipal level, break down and start the dialogue, and allow the people to come together in this type of situation, you have to allow people to talk to each other, to express what has happened, and to agree amongst themselves of what is reparation, what is justice, because we cannot send all those children to jail. Many of them have committed atrocities. We cannot send all of them to jail. But there must be reparation. In these kind of cases, sometimes they say, if I have committed a crime against you, then for 6 months I must work on your farm. Mm-hmm. For 6 months I must clean your house. Whatever it is that they agree upon as reparation and as justice has to be done at that low community level. When we finish the dialogues at those levels and we cease fire, because the main thing right now for the population is to cease fire and to start putting down arms and taking arms out of the communities. So those people have to come together and heal the community. From those dialogues at the bottom level, we can begin to move to the top, to the divisional level, to say this and this and this is what the people have said at the divisional level. From the divisional level to the regional level, and then to the national level. For us, this is the way. And then alongside, when you have gotten a community to sit down, dialogue, agree on reparation and justice, and you begin that process, only then, Mr. Leo, can you begin reconstruction alongside that process. You cannot say you are reconstructing where people have not created a minimum of peace. What I am talking about is already happening in some communities. Some communities without, because I am talking about it from what can I say, a sort of a point of a professional point of view, because this has been done in other countries. Mm-hmm. I just came back from the US where I was discussing with Colombians about how they came back together, how they were able to stop this kind of war. So we are learning from those societies to implement. But some communities in the Northwest and Southwest have already instinctively begun this process. Let us go there and learn from those communities who have been able to stop the guns and begin the rebuilding.
Madam Kah, so many persons